morning, we are back YouTubing. So we're going to go through, I know Matt's spoken about obviously both of us going into our kind of improvement phase, into our building phase and things like that, and what we're going to do, how we're going to get there. So today we're going to do very much a day in the life. So we're going to go through, I'm currently going through check-ins. I've got work going on at the minute. My office is very pink and very floral. I love my office. So we're going to go through, take you through a few of my check-ins. We're going to have a little catch up with the girls, and then I am training legs today. So at the minute my current training plan is very much, I train 5 days a week. I have 2 rest days. I train legs 3 times a week. It's very glute and ham focused. I don't really need to build up my quads, being the fact I'm quite short as well, and I do hold a lot of muscle and fat on my legs. We knew one of my main focuses was the fact that I needed to build my glutes and hamstrings up, especially through the fact, which is very common throughout girls as well, you have to dig very deep to kind of get that some sort of glute ham tie. So if I can build a lot of muscle up as well as get condition, hopefully my legs will come through a little bit more so when it comes the right time to prep again. So that's the goal, because you see a lot of people that are saying I need more condition, I'm more condition, but actually the fact that there isn't a lot of muscle there in the first place, so you dig very deep. So we knew I had a little bit of muscle there, but also typically being female, hold a lot of fat on your legs, it can be very stubborn. So just trying to counteract that and be prepared for next time by building a lot more muscle there, as well as obviously knowing it's quite a stubborn area. So we're gonna take you through my leg day today. We've recently done a new training plan, so again it can be very easy to go into that thing of being like, I need a new training plan every few weeks, I need to complicate my muscles, I need to mix things up, when actually you really don't need to. My training plan has been very much the same since post show, so that is what, 5-6 months, hang on, 5, 6, 7, 8 months I've kind of had the same training plan, and as much as most things are pretty much the same, still pretty consistent in the same compounds and the same ideas of what I'm targeting, but we like to, it's nice to mix it up just for mindset, because that's one of the reasons you do want to mix things up. So the idea behind it all, what I'm targeting, the muscle groups are there, but just sometimes changing the exercises. So this is going to be my solid plan for another solid few months now. So I'm going to take you through my leg day today. Like I said, it's very glute ham and focused. I'm going to eat my first meal in a minute. I try and hold off my first meal because I like to eat a lot of meals in the afternoon. So we'll go through my first meal in a minute, but for the minute I'm just finishing off some check-ins. So we're going to take you through a few of my girls' check-ins that are absolutely smashing it, eat some food, and then head to the gym. Morning, lovely. So I am really happy with everything this week. I mean, we're making changes, we're feeling good, we're finding that routine, and we are just getting on it with our structure, and that is why everything is coming into place and you're feeling good with it. So I absolutely love this. So we've got into our routine, you're understanding that there's no good or bad foods. It's about having that balance, having that flexibility, and feeling good from these foods. So caught up with check-ins, they're all done for the minute. I am going to head to the gym. So we've got Naughty Boy. So I've kind of stepped away because I have a lot of monsters, and so I say a lot, I like to have monsters. Normally if I don't have a pre-workout, so I normally have a coffee in the morning, and then I'll have either a monster or I'll have this. And I've moved away from stim pre-workouts for the minute, mainly because I just love the taste of this so much. So it's a Naughty Boy strawberry and mango. We've got it on our site at the minute, gmtsupplements.com. So really love this flavour. Even my sister, who never takes pre, actually had some of this the other day and she loved it. And an intra-workout is just normal creatine for the minute, having that daily. So I have that during my workout, otherwise I know I would never take it. So yeah, pre-in, drink made. So now let's go train.
Hello. So we're going to be doing something very different for our next few videos, really, going through this growing season. So I don't know what Georgia said about this morning. I know she's done a little bit of recording this morning, but the whole idea of this is for people that want to perhaps learn a little bit more about training and how to structure a program. So those of you that can't afford a coach, or maybe don't want to work with a coach but want to learn a little bit more, or people that are working with coaches and do just want to learn a little bit more. That's the whole reason or idea behind this, is to go through all of Georgia's training sessions and explain the reason why she's doing what she's doing and how she's performing the movements to best get the most benefit out of each movement, if that makes sense. Hopefully you can all hear me. It's very noisy in this gym, so I've got a mic. It's not the best mic because we're actually filming with the iPhone today, but hopefully it will do the job. So George is just warming up with an RDL. Basically, we'll record her top working sets because I think it's really, really important to assess if you are pushing yourself to failure. That's one really common thing that I see when I get training clips get sent through to me, is oftentimes people aren't pushing themselves enough. Finding out where that sort of, pushing yourself to failure is. Now, is it necessary to always push yourself to failure? No. But do I think it's a good idea? Yes, I do think it is, especially for your top working sets. As long as you're doing it safely, your form isn't breaking down, because ultimately, once your form breaks down, that's pretty much a failure point, okay? So, yeah, we'll get into the session. I believe it's a glute-focused session today, which mainly her leg sessions are glute-focused. Again, I don't know if she explained it this morning, but basically, for Georgia, it's a really big priority for us to work on her glutes and her hamstrings. Her quads last year were already on the limit of how big we want them to be. So we're not doing any direct quad work. We've actually removed any exercises that do target the quads. We've only got I think 2 exercises in there that target them indirectly. They're just part of the movement. But yeah, we've tried to avoid them a lot through this building phase. So yeah, you'll notice that it is glute and hamstring focus. Really big key thing is for bikini girls that want to do this, prioritize their glutes, is use recovery as your sort of guideline if you're pushing too hard or not. If you're not recovering by the time you hit your glutes again, then you need to pull back a little bit on volume. Georgia, she does recover well. We have everything in place so she does recover as best as possible. So she is able to hit the amount of working sets that are programmed in for her. But if there does come to a point where we're going through the building phase where it does get a bit too much for her and her glutes are just battered, then I would pull back a little bit or potentially look to implement a deload loop. So yeah, we'll get stuck in, shall we?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so George has done her sort of feeder sets and built up to her top working set. So that's what this is going to be now. So it's a set of 8 reps. You notice on the feeder sets that she wasn't getting a full hip extension, so she was missing out on the top range before. So that's something that we're going to incorporate now, just so she can get a little bit more out of the movement. So it doesn't matter how experienced you are, you can always try and learn to improve your lift and try and get a little bit more out of it. So what I'll be looking for when anyone does this lift, and basically the main focus behind it is working the glutes and working the hamstrings through this hip extension. So she's getting hip flexion here. She's sending her hips backwards as she's descending down, okay? So as she's going down, she's going until she feels a nice stretch in the hamstrings there. And then she's using her glutes and her hamstrings to pull herself up by hip extension, pushing those hips back through and not thinking about just pulling up with your back, okay? Because otherwise your back will take over, and a lot of people struggle with that, okay? So it's really, really important that you think about pushing the hips through and not about just pulling up with your back. So you can see here, it's really nice controlled reps. This is pretty much perfect form. So you can do this with a barbell, you can do it with dumbbells. Georgia likes to do it here with the belted squat machine. She just feels it the most, right?
I feel like it takes away, it's a weird feeling. It seems like my form is probably a little bit more controlled, though it takes away from my back to feel it in this. So I've experimented with all of them, and I've done all of them in the past, but right now, for me, the way I feel, this feels the best. And I want to do RDLs.
She's actually got a lower back injury, so for her to be able to do this and not feel it in her back is very, very good. It doesn't aggravate your back at all, does it?
I keep it quite light, and I keep it full. I think that's the thing, like, it's very easy to ego lift and be like, I want to lift however much dumbbell RDL. So, like, if I belt squat, that's a lot more than this. But it's like, push your ego to one side, what can you feel? And it's making sure, like, that control is there, and then that's how I feel it, rather than loading it up and screwing my back over.
Yeah, it looked good. It looked good. Right, on to the next. Okay, so next up on George's plan
Preference on right or leg left to start?
is a single leg hamstring curl. So she just asked, do I have a preference for which leg first? Yes, do your weaker leg first. Always try and do your weaker leg first, and then you can just match it with the other one. The whole idea behind unilateral work is to make sure that you don't have any imbalances within your physique. So if you were to do your stronger one first and, I don't know, do 16 reps and then do your weaker leg afterwards, only manage 12, that's only going to make your imbalance worse. So we'll start with your weaker leg. Now this is a great machine if you are working with a partner, because they can help you get force reps in as well to push you past your limits. But what I'll be looking for in this machine is that full range of motion there. So she's coming all the way down nicely, full extension there, and then full knee flexion, curling the pad up all the way to her bum if possible. This is pretty much perfect form. What I don't want to see is any hips shooting up, any kind of momentum with your upper body at all. I've seen a lot of that. Try and keep your hips pushed against the pad as much as possible as you go through this set. Go on, George. So again, this is where a partner can come really in handy, just to help in that top range there, where she really struggles. Go on. Go on. Perfect. Good. So that's pretty much her failure point there. You can see she's really starting to struggle. If I was being a right bastard, I could have maybe got her to force her to do a couple of force reps in. But we're at the start of the session. I don't want to absolutely batter her straight away. We've got a long way to go. And this is something that Georgia does really want to work on through her growing season, is make sure that she hasn't got any imbalances. She did notice a little bit on her physique last year, but that was just us being really, really picky. It didn't come up on any judges' feedback or anything like that. But obviously we are trying to grow a lot of tissue this year, so we want to make sure that it is as symmetrical as possible. So that's why we do add in some unilateral work. The downside to doing it, single leg work, go on, George, is it does take a little bit more time than if you were doing two legs at once. But that's pretty much the only downside to doing it. Feel good?
Christ, that hard.
Next up on the plan, she has abductors. Again, just a glute bias exercise. Don't really need to go into this one in too much detail. Just make sure that you're not jumping out of the seat. Make sure you use the handles, keep yourself nice and stable, locked in. What's the idea behind the t-shirt, Georgia?
When I wear shorts, my leg gets stuck to the seat, so I need to make sure I don't get stuck.
Georgia's building phase tips. Now you see Georgia's leaning forwards a little bit here. Now you can do this. It doesn't matter too much because it's not actually going to affect the exercise of hip abduction. Some people like to sit back against the pad. Some people like to sit forward slightly. She is very short in stature, so she just finds it more comfortable to do this in terms of feet placement. But yeah, ultimately it doesn't affect the exercise too much. If you sit forward, sit back, just make sure that you're stable, as I said before, and really locked in, which she is. Bulgarian split squats. Now, I have a love-hate relationship with this. It is such a good exercise for building legs. Now, depending where you stand, it's going to bias a certain muscle group. So generally, the closer you are to your bench, the more quad activation you're going to get. If you step a little bit further away, it can help bias the glutes a little bit more. So obviously, that's what we're going to be doing today with G. Now, this Smith machine isn't ideal for it because it does come down at a slight angle. Ideally, you want a Smith machine that comes straight up and down. But I still do prefer a Smith machine for this exercise over free weight when I program it in for clients and myself. The reason being is because we're not trying to work on our balance when we do this exercise. If you're doing it with dumbbells or if you do it with a barbell on your back, the balance does come into it a little bit. And generally, the more stability you have with an exercise, the more force and load you can put through your muscle groups. Like the more weight you're going to be able to put on the bar, which ultimately, long term, is going to lead to more hypertrophy. So that's what we're going to be aiming for. So you want to go down as deep as you can, basically, without smashing your knee on the ground. It's going to come down to what your flexibility is like, and then come back up again. This is literally perfect form right here. Don't need to adjust Georgia at all. The tempo's spot on as well. And again, it's a great unilateral exercise as well to make sure that you've got nice balance with your physique. Now, like I said earlier, we're trying to avoid like direct quad work. Now, quads are going to come into this exercise a bit for G because ultimately we are doing knee flexion here, and she is pushing up away from the ground there, which, you know, she is going to be working our quads. But as I said, having that distance on the bench does help bias those glutes. A big thing that I see a lot with this exercise and what we want to try and avoid is spending too much time resting at the top and locking out that front leg. Never lock out that front leg. Ideally, we want to keep tension on as much as possible to keep that weight moving. So yeah, this exercise it's one of those exercises where it's going to be mind over matter. You've got to push through the pain. Like Georgia right here, you can tell she's fucking hurting. She carried on. She got that set done. How much did it hurt?
A lot.
It's a bit of a lung buster as well, but as I said before, it's a fantastic exercise. Good for those glutes. Feel it in your glutes.
Yes.
She's happy, as you can tell. Okay, so finishing up today, we're doing some hip thrusts with a band, superset with lateral banded walks. Now, this is a really great way to finish off your quads. Now, I would never put this exercise as like the main driving force of hypertrophy within a program. The reason being is it's hard to overload. With a barbell, for example, or a hip thrust machine, it's easy to overload because you just either, well, you basically just can overload by increasing the weight on the bar. But this, obviously, the tension is coming from the band. But as I said before, it's a great way to add in additional volume for your glutes, especially if you're tight on time because the setup's just so quick and easy. But if I was to pull any volume from anywhere, if, say, for example, she was struggling with recovery, then this would be one of the first things I would pull out. So you can see there, she's getting great hip extension, pushing those hips forwards, working those glutes. What I like to see within this movement is a perfect table, what I call a tabletop position. And that's basically where you've got a straight line going from your kneecaps, your femur, through your hips, through your spine. Basically, when you've achieved that, that's when your hips are pushed forward and you're getting the most out of this movement. Oftentimes, girls do miss out a lot of the top part of the movement by not pushing those hips right forward and getting the maximum contraction on the glutes. So make sure that you are doing that. And as I said before, she's just supersetting with some lateral banded walks. Again, it's just another exercise to target the glutes and really finish them off for the day. She kind of looks like she's peed her pants and she's walking home in shame, uncomfortably. But it is a good exercise. If you haven't tried these, definitely chuck them in. As I said, I think they're great exercises like a superset. Chuck them in with something else. But they do work as well just on their own. But once again, it's a hard exercise to like overload, but they're still good for additional volume on the glutes if the glutes can handle it. Feel good?
It's the burner.
So that's it, session done. So that was your lower C session, was it?
Yeah, so I've got lower A, upper A, lower B, upper B, lower C. 3 leg days, 2 uppers. A lot of people, I guess, because that's why you've got to have a plan tailored to you, especially like with bikini, it's very much, you'll see a lot of people that might do like glutes and delts, and then they might do a posterior, which would be like kind of all your back, hamstrings, things like that. They might do a quad focus day. So, you know, I've done things like that before, but I prefer my legs, upper, and things like that. And obviously, again, catering to your criteria. So, other than NPC and IFBB, you're going to show your back. But if you're just going for like 2 rows and all the NPC and IFBB, then the back isn't as important. It's still needed to help create width in a smaller waist from the back, but your actual, like, you don't do a lat spread. So I still like training back, but I only do like 1 or 2 exercises a week.
Basically enough to maintain.
And it's very much glutes, hamstrings, like we said. We don't do quads unless it's Bulgarians. But otherwise, before that, I wasn't really doing any quads. So it's just kind of making sure I train for me.
Again, like any quad volume in there is to just maintain what she's got, and then we're using the main bulk of the volume to drive hypertrophy for the hamstrings and the glutes.
Yes.
That's basically the principle of the plan. So yeah, basically, like she said, train for your criteria, program your training program for your criteria as well, which is exactly
and just
what we've
strengths
done.
and weaknesses. So, like I said, it could be very much glutes and delts because that's the criteria, but you might have a lot of work to do on your delts, and you might have an amazing back. Or if you are going to, do the other federations where you need a back, you might have killer delts, but you might need to do a lot of back. So, it could be the fact that you have to do. You're changing your sets and weights and things like that, or it might be high volume. It might be the fact you're maintaining. Whatever it is, it's knowing the criteria that's needed. Obviously with bikini it's very much glutes, hamstrings, delts, small waist, but what are your strengths and weaknesses personally to know what you need to develop as well.
Yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed that, guys. We're going to be doing pretty much her whole training program over the next few months. So basically, yeah, you can follow it along, as I said before at the start of the video. If you haven't got a coach, or if you're trying to learn a little bit more about how to maybe structure a program, if you follow along, this is the exact program that we're going to be doing for Georgia to try and level up her physique for the bikini stage next year.
Very exciting. And watch me die along the way.
So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, all that jazz, and we will see you in the next one.